Welcome back to another episode of A Book a Day podcast. And as you know, this week we are discussing the great Chinese classic by Lao Tzu, Daodejing. And so far we have covered 50 chapters, each one of which is really small, hardly a few sentences long. And these verses make you reflect on the idea of Taoism, on the idea of existence, and what you should do in the light of that. Today we'll discuss the next 10 chapters from 51 to 60. So, without any delay, let me start with chapter 51, which once again talks about the Tao. It says, "The Tao gives birth to all things. Virtue nourishes them. Matter shapes them. Circumstance perfects them. Therefore, all things respect the Tao and honor virtue, not because it is commanded, but because it is natural to do so. The Tao gives life, yet does not possess. It acts, yet does not depend. It leads, yet does not rule. This is called the mystery of virtue." That's all. That's the chapter. Really short once again. Now, if you read it carefully, you'll find that the chapter reveals the Tao as the creative source of everything, kind of a motherly force that brings forth the creation, then it nurtures and sustains. And the Tao acts without controlling or owning anything. It gives life freely in abundance and let things grow according to their own nature. And here Lao Tzu reminds us that true leadership, true goodness, and true creation, it comes from generosity, does not come from power or domination, comes from generosity. And to live by the Tao is to allow life to unfold without worrying about results. That is to focus on your actions, not caring about results, something that you also find in the Bhagavad Gita. That's chapter 51. Now let's move on to chapter 52. Let me read it first. It goes, "The beginning of the universe is the mother of all things. If you know the mother, you will know her children. Knowing the children, yet holding to the mother, you can live without danger. Stop the openings, shut the doors, and to the end of life, nothing will trouble you. Open the openings, busy yourself with affairs, and you will never be safe. Seeing the small is called clarity. Keeping to the gentle is called strength. Use the light, return to the light, and leave nothing to harm you. This is called practicing eternity." Here, Lao Tzu calls the Tao the mother, the origin of all things that exist. And to stay close to the mother is to stay rooted in simplicity and inner peace and harmony. Here he says that when we chase the children, that is, children in this case, the matter, the material world, the distractions of the world, the desires, we lose connection to the source and we invite anxiety. And here, stopping the openings means just shunning the senses and desires so that we can see clearly with our spirit. So, for Lao Tzu, strength lies in gentleness and return, just using our awareness to stay close to the inner light that we all possess. And when we do that, our strength never fades. That's chapter 52. Now, let's read chapter 53. If I have even a little knowledge, I will walk in the great way. The only fear is to go astray. The great way is simple, but people prefer the side paths. The court is corrupt, the fields are neglected, the granaries are empty. Yet some wear fine clothes, carry sharp swords, fill themselves with food and drink, and have wealth beyond measure. This is called robbery and extravagance. It is far from the way. Now, in this case, Lao Tzu turns from the cosmic to the social. And here, in this context, the great way is simple. Once again, the natural order of harmony and balance. But we humans, unfortunately, we constantly leave it for greed, excess, and vanity. That's what rulers do. Societies somehow lose sight of the Tao, turn to materialism, injustice. And for an individual, this is a call to integrity. When you do that, when all the individuals do that, that is, live simply, walk in the middle path, creating that balance to keep one's hearts clear, even when the world is becoming corrupt. When we do that at individual level, the societies, they also flourish. Now, chapter 54. It says, what is well planted cannot be uprooted. What is well embraced cannot slip away. Generations will honor it forever. Cultivate virtue in yourself, and it will be real. Cultivate it in your family, and it will overflow. Cultivate it in your community, and it will endure. Cultivate it in the nation, and it will be abundant. Cultivate it in the world, and it will be universal. Therefore, the self is where cultivation begins. The world is where it ends. Once again, the similar idea that we previously discussed, how personal virtue radiates outward. What begins within a person, simple qualities such as sincerity, kindness, even simplicity for that matter, it naturally influences family, community, country, and eventually the world. So, this insight, I feel, is deeply psychological. This inner order creates outer harmony. So in a world obsessed with reforming others, politicization of everything, he returns to the spirituality. The spiritual order, spiritual way is returning to yourself first. And that's the point here. When the roots are deep, the tree of life stands unshaken. That's what we learn in chapter 54. Now, chapter 55. Let me read it. One who embodies virtue is like a newborn child. Poisonous insects will not sting it. Wild beasts will not seize it. Birds of prey will not strike it. Its bones are soft, its muscles weak, yet its grip is firm. It knows nothing of the union of male and female, yet its essence is complete. Its cry is whole throughout the day, yet it never becomes hoarse. Such is perfect harmony. To know harmony is to know the eternal. To know the eternal is to be enlightened. To overfill is to invite decay. This is not the way. So what's the meaning here? It means that virtue, when it is fully embodied, fully manifested, makes you innocent like a child. You're pure, unguarded, and yet perfectly protected by the harmony of nature. And you might feel that Lao Tzu is kind of romanticizing naivety too much. But he's not doing that. He's pointing to a state beyond fear and control, where one lives so aligned with life that no harm can reach. The warning at the end, to overfill is to decay. It reminds us that excess, pride, too much ambition, it will lead to downfall. The childlike spirit, however, remains light and fluid. More importantly, it's eternal. That's what you should aim for. So that was chapter 55. Let's read chapter 56. Those who do not speak, those who do not know, they speak, and those who do not speak, they know. Block the passage, close the door, blunt the sharpness, untangle the knots, soften the glare, settle the dust. This is called the mysterious sameness. Therefore, one cannot be possessed, nor approached, nor benefited, nor harmed, nor honored, nor disgraced. Thus, he is the most noble under heaven. This particular chapter I really enjoy. I think this is probably the most famous of his lines and also misunderstood in some ways. When he says that those who do not speak, they know, it does not mean silence out of secrecy. But this silence, it comes from depth, from some kind of wisdom that no longer needs to prove itself. It does not need validation. The sage quiets the ego's restlessness and moves with humility, silence, blending into the ordinary flow of life. By softening sharpness and calming the inner dust, such a person becomes invulnerable, untouched by praise or insult, because their views of themselves, or anything for that matter, they no longer depend on the outside world. So that was chapter 56, really interesting one. And let's read chapter 57. It says, govern the state with uprightness, use surprise in war, but win the world by non-interference. How do I know this? Because the more prohibitions there are, the poorer the people become. The more sharp weapons people have, the more troubled the state. The more cunning and cleverness, the more strange affairs arise. The more laws are posted, the more thieves appear. Therefore, the sage says, I take no action, and the people transform themselves. I prefer stillness, and the people become upright. I do not interfere, and the people prosper. I am without desire, and the people return to simplicity. Now, much of this chapter is political, and Lao Tzu shows us the way that we can teach, we can guide, not through words, but actions. And not even actions per se, but just by being. And he's speaking here purely as a political philosopher. He sees that excessive control breeds chaos, over legislation, moral policing, too much ambition. It creates the very disorder that we are trying to prevent. The sage or any wise ruler, he governs by non-interference, trusting that people, just like nature, because people are also nature, they find their own order when not oppressed. The deeper meaning extends to personal life also. The less we control our own growth or others, the more harmony naturally arises. And that should be our inspiration. That finding a way towards harmony rather than control, nourishing ourselves, our souls, and the world around us. So that was chapter 57. Let's read chapter 58. When the government is dull and inactive, the people are simple and honest. When the government is sharp and active, the people are cunning and restless. Misfortune rests upon fortune. Fortune hides within misfortune. Who knows where one ends and the other begins? Righteousness becomes deception. Goodness becomes witchery. The confusion of humanity has lasted. Therefore, the sage is square but not cutting, straight but not rigid, bright but not blinding. Now, when you reflect on this chapter deepens the idea of balance. What it means is any kind of overactivity or cleverness, they create deception, whereas simplicity nurtures sincerity. Lao Tzu here is reminding us that fortune and misfortune are not really opposite, but shifting faces of one whole. Gain hides loss, and loss hides gain. So the wise person doesn't cling to one or fear the other. They remain kind of detached. They are gentle and clear. They're not rigid, they're not dazzling. They're just holding on to themselves, their own inner Tao. And they're just focusing on that. Not too much on the results, not on what the world is saying. They are grounded. Now, let's see what the chapter 59 says. It goes, in governing people and serving heaven, there is nothing better than restraint. Restraint comes from early preparation. Early preparation comes from deep roots. Deep roots bring long life and enduring vision. He who is firmly rooted cannot be uprooted. He who holds the way long endures. He can see the beginning of all things. So now Lao Tzu is combining the political and spiritual spheres, because in the first line itself, in governing people and serving heaven, that is the political life and the spiritual life, there is nothing better than restraint. That's what he says. Restraint, not suppression. He's talking about moderation. That is the key to lasting harmony. And he sees wisdom as something cultivated long before it is needed, like roots of a tree that nourish the unseen branches. The roots are never going to see the branches or the leaves, but they are very well prepared in advance to take care of the branches. To be restrained is to live with foresight, to preserve energy rather than spending it recklessly. So those who are deeply rooted in the Tao, they are strong through change. They are steady through change. They have perspective because they live close to the source, not at the restless surface of events. They are grounded in Tao. And now, the final chapter for today's episode, chapter 60. Let me read it. It goes, ruling a great state is like cooking a small fish. Too much handling will spoil it. Approach the world with the Tao, and evil will have no power. Not that evil will vanish, but its power will not harm people. When rulers and people act with the Tao, their virtue becomes one. Together, they return to the simplicity of life. Once again, he is combining the personal with the political, and he uses one of the simplest and most beautiful metaphors, governance, and by extension, living, should be seen as cooking a small fish, which is gentle and minimal. So what happens is excess interference breaks natural order. He says evil cannot be destroyed by force. Only by living in alignment with the Tao does it lose its grip. So, as I said, this is both political as well as personal. When we stop overcooking or overdoing in life, which is overthinking, overcorrecting, just having excess of something. When we stop doing that, the natural order will return itself. The harmony will return. And that's what we should aspire for. So those were the chapters from today. I will continue this discussion in the next episode as well. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.